जय हिंद दोस्तों, मैं हूं मेजर मोहम्मद अली शाह और आज मैं अपने फेवरेट डिजाइनर इन द होल वर्ल्ड, हिंदुस्तान में ही नहीं,
Sweet.
इंटरनेशनली, ग्लोबली फेवरेट, सबसे मनपसंद और सबसे अच्छे इंसान, उनके साथ गुफ्तगू में हूं। तो मुझे बहुत खुशी है, जिनको मैं बहुत टाइम से जानता हूं और जो कि इतने अच्छे डिजाइनर तो खैर हैं ही हैं, उससे ज्यादा खूबसूरत ये इंसान है। And we will be talking about him, about his life as an army brat. As we all know, I mean, Tarun Tahiliani is a very big brand, a huge name. And he was a Fauji brat as well. His father was the chief of the naval staff, who was subsequently the governor of Sikkim. And of course, he studied he's had the best education one could see, one could get in the world, not just in the country. In the prestigious Doon School, firstly, a school where I failed the entrance test where I couldn't go, but doesn't matter. I went to another boarding school. And so I would say Tarun went to the second best school in the country.
Ah, where
First
did
school
you
was in
go,
school
Major
after.
Ali? Mm, that's good. Yeah.
And
Always
of
burst
course,
people's
thereafter he
bubbles. It's always better.
right, right. So after that, he went to St. Stephen's College, and but thereafter he went abroad to the US, and he has a business degree from Wharton, and we will discuss all that. And right now, today, not only bridal wear, not only women's dresses, he is designing for leading hotels as well across the world. Let's join hands together, and I can go on. I can just go on, but there is. I would like to pass the mic over to Tarun. Tarun, thank you very much for spending time, Tarun.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. I think that introduction was unwarranted, but anyway, let's tell them the truth now. Enough fluff about me.
I love your sense of humor. Tarun, let's talk about your early years growing up as as a naval brat, sorry. And your father was an illustrious admiral in the Navy. And how was before you went to the Doon, how was your schooling like and how was your childhood like?
Compared to a lot of other armed forces, because the Navy was based obviously where there were big ports, and at that time the principal port on the west coast was Mumbai. There was a smaller base in Goa, which was actually more an air base, Dabolim. There was Kochi, and there was Chennai and Vishakhapatnam. We somehow were lucky enough to spend most of our time in Mumbai. And so it was quite stable for 10 years. We did a short stint in Delhi twice, and actually then only really moved when my father became senior enough to move to NHQ, which is Naval Headquarters, when I was 10 years old in 1972. So till then, it was really like a civilian life. We lived for a while in Navy Nagar, but we lived actually next to the Taj. My grandparents lived down the road. So it really felt like a civilian life, except that I love planes and ships. So it was very exciting for me as a kid because my dad was also the first naval test pilot and naval aviator, first one to land on the Vikrant, and he had brought Vikrant back. So it was very exciting, because I'd go on the ships and we'd, get to see all the planes, and we'd go out on Navy Day. And in the 10th, I was given permission to sail with him on the Vikrant when he was captain from Mumbai to Kochi while they were doing all their flying. It was amazing. I mean, a dream. Other than that, I went to the Campion School, which was next door. And unfortunately, because I had some, I wouldn't say, but there were deformities in my legs. They were terribly bent. I had to do a lot of physiotherapy and they wanted to break my legs. And my father said no. So I wore those polio braces, to straighten them out. And as a result, I couldn't do what a lot of kids did. You couldn't play sport. And so, anyway, I think I had an inclination. I just gravitated to a lot of piano and art. I loved arts. We used to build beautiful models, with this wonderful teacher outside of school. So my interest in the arts really, because of, when you have one closed door, other doors open. I always believe that in life. And so I just basically did a lot of music, theater. I went on to doing a lot of work in applied arts, painting, papier mache, and all this has come in handy as I've grown older because my work as a designer is very connected to this. When we were in
Okay.
72, we moved to Delhi, and that was a real shock. We moved in May, and I had an uncle who was in signals. So we went straight from the airport to that signals enclave right near the airport. It was searing hot. We never had heat like this. Nobody had air conditioners. There used to be one cooler in that house. I mean, they were all, army. But you learn to survive. We lived in those horrible, I call them horrible flats next to the Taj Palace. You know, it was like the wilderness back then. Delhi was like a village. This part of Delhi was just developing. And I moved to St. Columbus. And, it was fine. Your children, you adapt, you have no expectations. And then because of this, I had to go out to boarding school because then my father was getting transferred a lot. Kochi, he was in Goa, SCNC. And for stability, I went off to the Doon School, which was another kind of a shock. When you come from South Bombay, the Doon School is another planet, you know. But again, it teaches you that India is not South Bombay. And a lot of questions, a lot of your notions you have as an Indian. Because when I look back, Ali, I really feel we were very silly and colonized, even at the Doon School. We didn't want to speak Hindi. We really were some kind of silly, pseudo elitist English speaking class who were confused. Our education was all made by them, to be like them. But we played into it. When I look at myself today, I'm a very different person because I've learned India differently. So, which we'll come to later. So it was fine. It was great. There were people from Punjab. There were, farmers' kids from Bhatinda who were just another species totally. I mean, if I could call them that. There were a lot of people from the north. Then there were the Bombay and Delhiites. The Calcutta crew mostly came from the tea plantation. So they were in their own pseudo Angrez, fixations. It was great to be in a melting pot of people. Today I can go anywhere. I can sleep anywhere. I can talk to anybody. That school gave that to me. We would go on a cycling trip from Dehradun to Chandigarh, let's say over 5 days and back. We'd sleep outside railway stations on a blanket. And, we did it. We still had fun. And that experience is invaluable for me today and what it made me because you're fearless to go anywhere. And so that was great.
I could so connect to this, being a Fauji brat myself and then going to a boarding school that eat anywhere, sleep anywhere, talk to anyone anywhere, adjust anywhere. The adaptability, I mean, that is
I
amazing.
mean,
Like
I
you
tell
said, Tarun.
my children are so, they're good boys. I mean, they're now in their 30s, but they were so spoiled. Their school trip, so let's go skiing to Verbier in Switzerland. Let's go. I mean, slightest, thing, my God, full trauma. I said, it's your loss. You all will not see life the way it is because you need to always be in a certain kind of environment. And for me, this is a very good upbringing because once I moved back to Delhi, I went to St. Stephen's for a year. We had to take that bus. It was 2 hours, that heat. You change at Central Secretariat, which is behind Rashtrapati Bhavan. Then you take another bus. But we were not spoiled. We had no choice. And we knew as 4G kids that if you don't make your life, no one's going to make it for you. There's nothing to hand out to you. Today, there's so much entitlement, so many kids, right? All this depression, this, that. Half the problem is they need a slap and be told, you're not getting anything. That's sab kuch ud jayega. They'll be on their feet. But anyway, these are the cycles of economic, what happens when you allow economic dependence. Anyway, we came back to Delhi. I didn't like it particularly because what I found very limiting in university in India was you did one subject. Now, it is possible at 17 you don't know what you're going to do or who you are. And I started with English. I found it extremely dull. I found the whole approach very didactic. And quickly I decided I had to apply to get out. So I moved to the States within a year and went to Vassar College, which was fantastic. I majored in economics. And then I transferred to the Wharton School. Actually, again, that was to make my father happy. Because from a distance, Indians know the names. Ab ye is school mein jana chahiye. It's not that they didn't know anything more about it. Oh, this school had 2,000 kids and that had 17,000. So the attention was much more. Anyway, I did that. And
And
then
knowing the
in a strange
reputation of Admiral and knowing the reputation of Admiral Tilani, strict, upright Admiral, total Fauji, hardcore.
He
That
always told my sister, how the hell did I produce this, Tarun? And I said, Dad, you married your second cousin and I paid the price. Uske baad chup ho gaya. My parents were cousins.
that
So I
reminds me.
always blamed
Remember,
him
I
for
narrated to
genetic
you.
beauty. Huh?
I had narrated one monologue to you in 2005 at India Habitat Center, which was I am my own grandpa. Do you remember that, Arun?
Yes, 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 very much. Yeah, we met one day by chance there. That's where I know you from.
Right. And I'm
And at
related,
that
I'm my
time,
own grandpa to you.
yeah, at that time, were you just joining the army? I can't remember. Or had you joined already?
I was on my way out actually. I was
Oh,
finishing
you were
my
on your way
short
out.
service commission from the army.
Okay, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was that. It was a very different India. All my friends all my naval brat kids, as we call them, have all, they had to survive. They've all done very well. They've done jobs. Now, whether they did things they loved or not, this is the most important thing for me to communicate to your viewers. Because we were all channelized. My parents really wanted me to be an engineer and then go to Harvard. IIT Harvard. IIT Harvard is all I heard. I couldn't do engineering. I had no interest in it. So I fought and managed to get back into, economics and math and, history, and I love geography. But they'd say like, what you do? Because at that time, my father tried very hard to make me join the services, and I said,
Oh
there is
wow.
no way, no way, there's no way, no way. I'd say if I love planes. Can I be an airline pilot? And he'd just say, oh, that's disgusting. That's like being a bus driver. And that's before the days of autopilot. And I'd say, well, if I can't do that, I'm certainly not going to, join the Air Force because I love planes. I'm not this aggressive person who wants to go and bomb things. I don't want to bomb Karachi if there's a war. It's not my thing, Dad. I'm not going to live like that. I'm not going to wear a uniform and go to work every day. Obviously, back then, one couldn't understand that you might have different interests. What were the options for boys? Ya to doctor bano, ya vakil bano, ya engineer bano. There's nothing else, right? Opening your own business is not an option back then. So I wanted to do architecture. And when I came to the Delhi School of Architecture, you had to take physics and chemistry in the 12th, which I hadn't done for obvious reasons. I had no aptitude for it. And so you couldn't, and that again is an archaic rule. Nobody requires physics and chemistry if you've done it till the 10th anymore, because you learn very specific things, and architects work with structural engineers. Of course, you need math anyway, so that was not an option. So, back then, India closed out many options, and schools like ours, even though they were very privileged, they didn't know that there was a place like NID. So that was not an option because I didn't know about it. We lived really in a simple, different world. So anyway, once you went abroad, you could machinate, you could take art classes. The education was much more broad based. And then as soon as I finished, I had to move back to India because my mother's father's company was in some trouble, and she had passed away while I was in school. And my father was a trustee, but since he was becoming chief of naval staff, PC George, who was Indira Gandhi's, I think, secretary or whatever, principal secretary, rang him and said, you have to go up the trusteeship. And this was coinciding with the moment that I was graduating. So I've graduated, and 3 days back, I was back in Fort. I'm in Bombay right now. And in this old, decrepit machine tool office was where I worked. And another big regret. I mean, I had to do it, so there's no point regretting it. But everybody should go and work in the best company they can to begin with in any field, so you learn from best standards, not be stuck, in some archaic thing from the past. But anyway, the good thing is that my desperation there led me to phase two, which was to open on SOM because we had a big machine tool showroom, and we earned very little money and we were always broke. And this machine tool showroom was there, and it was my wife's idea. And so we started a store called Ensemble to promote Indian designs. Because to cut a long story short, we'd see all these beautiful things abroad and they were not available in India. And I would go to these people and say, 40 years after independence, we still want to sell our best produce to the white man. And we all shop in what we call fashion streets, which are basically export rejects. So that's all Indians buy. We buy export rejects, and the best product goes abroad. And that started off quite a movement, actually. Today, this whole designer culture, designer clothes, experimental with textiles, fusion Indian styles. Also, the government by this time had started NIFT, the National Institute of Fashion Technology, because India was a textile industry. We went to tailors, we got clothes made, women wore saris. We didn't have a fashion industry of cut and fit like existed in the West. This was a new thing for us. Our grandparents wore pajamas and dhotis, and they tied their turbans, and women wore saris. It's tailoring, as we know, it came in through the British. So there's been a huge change in this country. in my mind's eye, I would look at it 35. And though I love seeing the way old Indians dress, more and more I only see it with people over 70, 80, or when I go very deep into rural India. But even then, the young people are wearing jeans or shalwar kameez, the traditional way of draping, and it's a different lifestyle. It's nothing right or wrong. It's just the evolution has changed. So anyway, we started that store, and that's when my whole life went into another trajectory. I was still selling oil field equipment in the day. I was doing this in the evening. I was doing a third job, designing clothes. I worked very hard, and I still do, but I do what I love. So I never look at it as work. Uh, I'd much rather, more often than not, be doing this than going to a party or anything. It's much more intellectually stimulating and satisfying. So that's another very important thing for, I don't know who your target audience is, but certainly if there's anybody young listening to it, that as this world gets more and more competitive, you don't have to just work for the sake of putting in the hours. But if you're lucky enough to find something that you love doing, then the hours don't matter because it's like watching something that you're really into. You are your own kind of movie in a way.
Wow, absolutely. Very well said. Very well said by you, in fact. When we see Tarun Tehilani and we imagine glamour, we imagine the best designer, we imagine elite, we imagine that's what the imagination is. The name Tarun Tehilani is such a big brand, such a huge name. And of course, the company which you started much earlier in Symbol, in fact, and it's like a huge brand. But when you speak to Tarun Telani, he's such a simple man. He's just like any one of us who has had the same upbringing like any one of us, like
We,
going
Ali,
traveling.
Ali, we are all the same. Don't be fooled. In fact, I was watching your cousin's wife on something popped up with Ratna Pathak Shah, and she was talking. She said, I find it ridiculous when I'm on a plane with these other
Yeah,
actors.
yeah, yeah.
They won't
The
let the
tea.
stewardess this thing. अपना coffee भी like they all this नखरा 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 किस लिए भाई? किसको क्या दिखा रहे हो?
True.
बेवकूफ लगते हो. बिल्कुल, you look like an idiot. They come all the security, this thing. What's this tamasha for? And be nice to everybody. I'm lucky enough to be doing what I love. Okay. Forget the name, the recognition. Of course, we make money. I travel. I'm sometimes in Kutch. I've just come back from, where was I? Colombo yesterday, looking at amazing architecture in southern Sri Lanka. Jeffrey Baba. It's super interesting what I do. It's a gift. I've earned it. But I have to be nicer to people. And I don't want to hear ego and all this crap that goes on all the time. It doesn't make you cool, it makes you super uncool. I remember reading this quote, an obituary of J.R.D. Tata, who I always admired. And he, of course, built the Taj, or his grandfather built the Taj, or whoever. He started Air India. He was a visionary. Um, and they worked with best practices. And he came home and he said that he always saw his staff's children playing on the lawn because they lived in servants' quarters. And why should the children not play on the lawn? How many people will allow that today? My God. I go to all these mansions in Delhi. God forbid one child strays out of the servant quarter. And I just thought, what a man. He used to fly planes. He had these L7, but it's that humility. I've always thought it's the most beautiful quality in someone. Today, we're going to this big event in Bombay. Oh my God, the kind of projection in Nakra we're going to see. But anyway, this is my choice. This is the way my father was. Uh, I think it's a gift to be able to do all I want to do, and I'm not going to spend my life in some kind of fake bubble created for whose benefit. It only cuts me off from reality and what I find endearing and amazing. So it was funny that I just thought about this, and I watched this day before, and I was thinking, I know she's married to your cousin, but she was so fantastic and so vocal and so to the point. Bravo to her. More people need to learn
Thank you.
this in this country.
Thank you. She's married to my dad's younger brother. I wish I
Oh,
was that
okay.
old
So,
to be their cousin. Yeah.
okay, okay. Well, anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And in
sorry to
fact, he
eat
spoke
you up.
about the entire entourage culture that there are people in the aircraft, the actors who don't even get their tea themselves. They're so
That's
dependent
the
on
part
their
I heard on
passengers.
Instagram. And it's so ridiculous. And so when you have to do a shoot, because sometimes we shoot with these actors, we have to bring this, we have to bring that. And then the entourage to feel important, they just make absurd suggestions all day. Five people are combing the hair. And like, what are you guys doing? I know what I want. Get out. You know? But it's all, anyway. let's not go. That's not the subject of this conversation. So,
Right. So I was like, for our viewers to know, exactly 20 years back in the year 2003, there is a very popular discotheque, a pub in Calcutta. And I was there partying with my friends. I had just come back from JNK. I was a young lieutenant those days. And I had just come back from the jungle, from my post in JNK. So obviously I was partying there. And suddenly the music in the discotheque stopped. And the DJ announces, ladies and gentlemen, guess who we have with us? We have popular designer Tarun Tahiliani.
oh, I
And
had no
there we see,
recollection.
and then we see Tarun, a very simple man walking in, takes a seat at the bar. And I was like, oh my God. And we all have been fans of Tarun Tahiliani, of course. So I very hesitantly walked up to Tarun. I was like, I thought he'll be very, very arrogant and very hoity-toity and very nose up in the air types. And I went up to Tarun. I said, hi, Tarun. I am Lieutenant Ali. Hello, Lieutenant. How are you? Come take a seat. And the way Tarun spoke, like any one of us, like as if we are long lost friends. And that is the beauty of Tarun Telani. I mean, apart from being the big name, he is a bigger, say, human being because the way he connects with people, it is really amazing, Tarun. It's really amazing. And I think it is probably your boarding school upbringing and your defense upbringing on that. Am I right?
Well, yeah, also my father. My father was always, I remember driving with my father, and, we sometimes, as you see, I remember on Tough Parade once, this man was drunk and had fallen over, must be some guy from the slum next door, whatever. And my father would always stop, pull over the car, go talk to this person, see what he could do to help. He said, he might be he's someone's father. We don't want him to die. We don't want anything to happen. Oh God, I just sorry, something happened to my. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. I can see you clearly, Tarun.
Yeah. So my battery is running very low, so I'm trying to charge it and hold the phone. So he would
Right.
always go, and he would never be squeamish. He'd lean over, and he'd try to shake the guy and say, "Kya chahiye?" See what happened. Did he need a doctor? Should he give him some money? I still am hesitant to do this, but he would always do this. He never differentiated, and then he spent the last 15, 20 years working for the school in Lajpat, in GK2 in Delhi, Servants of Children's Society, and you know they would do two shifts so that more children could be educated in the afternoon shift using the resources. I mean, that's the kind of value system I've grown up with. I enjoy life, I have a great time, but I'm not changing that for anybody or anything. I think a value system is a gift because only you benefit from it. It might be nice for the people around you. But all this fake nakra entourage culture, this thing, man, not for me. And Instagram's making it much worse because I see people who are just caught up in posting and projecting, we call it. Good luck to them. It works for them. It's very alien to our Indian culture. And I don't think we should forget it just because we are trying so hard to be Western.
Right. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from this conversation of ours, Tarun. I mean, despite having the name and the fame and the success that you have, you still remain so
But
grounded, down to
Ali,
earth, and still
what is
remain.
name and fame? Name and fame gives you the ability to do more of what you love, right? So why do you have to have all this stupid nakra? I can understand if you're Shah Rukh Khan and you go out, you get mobbed. Yes, you have to surround you. I get it. Okay. But I see a lot of people who are pretending and posturing to be this. I'm seeing designers now roaming around with bodyguards. I mean, come on, for God's sake, you know. And I will also say this that the finest actors, such as your uncle, never did because they were not commercial. They were true artists in the caliber of Laurence Olivier or something, if I had to take an Indian equivalent. And I've seen things and watched soliloquies that have blown my mind. So I think it's fine. You have to choose what makes you happy. I just think that we're promulgating a very fake culture and there's no need for it. And one of the things I've loved abroad, being abroad, I remember being at a restaurant, Glenn Close for dinner, one of the greatest actresses. You see, Scarlett, Uma Thurman at the peak of her fame. There's no nakha, there's no this thing. They wear a cap and they lead normal lives. The greatest actors, Kate Blanchett, Kate Winslet, Kiara Knightley, all my favorite kids. You know nothing about their personal life. You don't know who their children are. They come, they do their work, they attend what they have to. They're gone, but they're great artists. I don't think great artists behave like this. I think it's a different kind of fluff. That's what I think.
Right. Right. Tarun, I mean, it is really, and they say traveling is the best education. You have traveled to in India widely, you've traveled abroad widely, you have gained so much, you've tasted different cuisines, you have heard different languages, different cultures, met various people from various nationalities. So, what is the best that you have gained from your travels, Tarun?
Two things for me, but personally, one is that there's such a diversity of exquisite culture on this planet. And unfortunately everything's being homogenized because of television, film, you know. When I first went abroad at the age of 17, when the plane landed in Rome, you knew you were in Italy. When it landed in Frankfurt, you knew you were in Frankfurt. Everything was different. The language you heard. Now it's all the same. It's the same shops, the same English, it all looks the same. You can maybe Bangkok Airport has this, and Bombay Airport, which is fantastic, thanks to Rajiv Sethi, has Indian art, but it's all kind of generic. I think we as a human race need to value all these cultures and respect them and not try and homogenize them. Same thing within India. Um, and and that culture, respecting. I was in Uzbekistan over Diwali, exquisite. You know, it's a wonderful liberal Muslim country. I think we need to respect that. We need to respect religions. We need to respect cultures. I think this need to homogenize and flatten and make, these are all personal choices. That's one. And the second thing, I travel a lot around nature. So I've just been down driving through Sri Lanka yesterday. I'm planning a trip. I go and travel in the wilderness of South Africa and nature, and that makes you respect the planet. And because of that, you consume differently. Yesterday I was at where was I? Jeffrey Baba's restaurant. I mean his old office, and the bottles there say refill, not landfill. So they won't serve you a plastic bottle. They won't give you PET. They refill the glass bottles. Little things. When you see, we were shocked. It was so clean driving through Sri Lanka. Now we have this huge population. But where did you drive in India? There's filth, there's lace packets, there's this thing. I remember going diving in the Andamans. There were PET bottles. But when I was diving in Ecuador, in the Galapagos Islands, I didn't see one. We did 4 dives a day for a week. I did not see one piece of wrapping in the water. They control, you know, even on the ships, they don't even flush toilet paper. Everything is kept in bags and disposed in landfills. So when you love the planet and when you see it for what it is, then you consume differently and you're okay to give up a little for the good for everybody. These are the two big lessons. I mean, frankly, people from different cultures and all, it's great. But unless they speak English, you don't really spend that much time with them. But you can see and through interpreters understand culture. And to me, that's one of the greatest things. And India has so much to see. Oh my God. We're such a fantastic country. When I'll meet my friends, I'll say, oh, they say, have you been we just came to the Northern Lights. We've been to Finland. Hum Antarctica gaye, yahan gaye. I say, हम बनारस देखे हो? नहीं. कुतुब मीनार देखा है? जब तक इसमें saying नहीं देखा हूं. So, I mean, I don't understand. We're obsessed with something outside, but that's also how we've been educated and brought up. But I think it is changing. This country is amazing. I have much to see and learn in this country. After being 5 days abroad, I'm always itching to come back. And this is not the Tarun that I knew growing up. I couldn't wait to get out. We wanted to be Western. We wanted jeans. We wanted everything American. Frankly, to most places, if I never step out again, I couldn't care less. As long as I can travel in this country and the spirit of this country and the people. When I read William Dalrymple's book, Anarchy, I understood what was done to us for 3 centuries. But God, every Indian's falling over themselves to please the English even now. There's no need, guys.
Right,
Get a grip.
right. In fact, have you read William Dalrymple's The Last Mughal or The Return of the Mughal?
No, I have to read that. The one on Bahadur Shah.
That's right. That's
I
right.
haven't. Actually, I started it and for some reason, I never finished it. And he's done something new, which I believe is excellent as well.
Very, very interesting read. In fact, Tarun, it's been such a pleasure, and I have taken a lot of your time, and I can see you're holding the phone. That's very, very sweet of you. And so the entire thing
Well,
of
because
Tarun
I've got a
Tahiliani,
battery attached to it. I don't want it to fall over. Sorry, go on. It's
right,
fine.
right, right. So the entire thing of Tarun Tahiliani, when you hear this name, of course, I mean, कहते हैं ना कि simple living but high thinking. That is Tarun Tahiliani for you all. Tarun, thank you very much for your time, and I
Always
really
my
love
pleasure, Ali, and I hope I get to see you in person soon. We'll
very
connect.
soon. Yes,
Take care.
yes, Tarun.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Take care.
My
Cheers, Tarun.
pleasure. Bye.
Bye bye. Just stay on. I'll just end the broadcast. I'll just go off air.